persons fatally stabbed and one senior member of what's believed to be a religious cult in Montego Bay, St. James, fatally shot after attacking the police on Albion Road in the parish. Here is Colleen May with the details.
A high-level police investigation is underway into the bizarre murder of a man and a woman in a church called Pathways International Restoration located in the Albion area of Montego Bay in St. James. Two deceased are believed to have been sacrificed as part of a religious cult. A third man who attacked the security forces with a knife was shot dead. A joint police and military team descended on the church at about 7 p.m. yesterday evening. Police and JDF personnel reportedly received information that the religious cult was in the process of sacrificing some of its members. Members of the JCF and Defense Force reportedly infiltrated the premises where the church is located and were met with gunshots. The shots were allegedly fired by members of the religious cult. Police and JDF soldiers say after the gunfight, a search was conducted and it was observed that a woman, Tanika Gordon, who was said to be sacrificed, was seen lying face down, dressed in white, with her throat slashed. Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson, who visited the scene early today, spoke of what transpired.
Behind us is the scene of it's Pathways International Church, where we had an incident last night. A member of this church who had been injured, apparently when she chose to disobey some instructions given to her by the leaders of this organization, reported to the police that she had been injured, and other information that led us to believe that the persons here were at risk. We're aware that 144 congregants had been told to come here. On responding to that report from the person who was injured and coming here, the first teams of police that arrived were shot at, and so they waited on reinforcements to come. We were very concerned that some form of ritualized killing was going to take place here, and so we did an entry last night. We found that there were a couple of people who had been injured by other members of the church. We secured the premises, held the people. I think there were about some 14 children, was it? 14 children there, and we have 31 women now, so we see that as a rescue of these children based on what we saw when we came in.
Major General Anderson said that several members of the church remain in custody and are being questioned by the police investigators.
Cult-like behaviors and cult-like a setup that we have seen here. Now, obviously, further investigations is going to reveal everything. We have a number of people that we're taking statements from, and we have had the scene of the crime people come and process the scene, and we will be updating as we go along. We have three people are dead. How many do you have in hospital? Right, and 3 persons hospitalized. Following every lead in this investigation, as I say, early days yet. There was a police woman here, and we are processing that as well. The CPFSA there and the other services, child services and so on, to determine what should happen with those children and perhaps some of the other vulnerable people in the group. They have been on the radar, but not necessarily specifically about what happened yesterday. But we got, as soon as it came to our attention, we responded based on what we saw. And I think it was very good, and it's really kudos to Senior Superintendent Ellis and his team that they took it seriously and moved in the way they did to get this matter resolved. Police don't allow or disallow people from carrying out religious activities unless it becomes a crime. We have very little or no real authority to stop anybody from carrying out a religious practice till they start to break the law.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, who was also at the scene earlier today, also explained that legislations regarding religious practices will have to be reviewed.
Individuals who can, in fact, influence people. And those are the ones who, when they are brought the attention of security, we have to monitor. Because, as indicated by the Commissioner, the police are not intervening last night, and in a sense it was an act of good fortune when the lady who was injured came to the police and the police rescued the scene. We could have had far more serious incidents. And the whole question of the right to assemble together and to practice religion is raised, and is something we'll have to look at. But from my understanding of the current legislation and the Constitution, it was difficult to do anything to stop the events happening. We have a very strong Constitution dealing with the rights of individuals. Aspects of it should allow you to place more responsibility on individual being held accountable, but we have not used that or interpreted that aspect of the Constitution very often in the judiciary, what they call the lateral responsibility of individuals. We may have to look at what legislation exists and maybe necessary, because as I said, especially as it relates to children and there is accountability of parents.
Reporting for Mellow TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen, for that report. In other news tonight, WINSHAE Barrett, the teen from Bath St. Thomas who went missing over the weekend, has been found alive. Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson says the 13-year-old was found approximately 3 miles from her home in a wooded area this morning.
Well, I just got word that the second girl that was abducted in St. Thomas has been found. She is with us now. I haven't gotten much more details from that, but she's alive and conscious. So the first thing obviously is to get her to medical attention. So they'll be doing that, and we'll see. The good thing is that she's alive and well. She was found about 3 miles away in a wooded area from where she was abducted.
She is said to be in good health. WINSHAE was reported missing sometime after 4 p.m. on Saturday, hours after 9-year-old Felisa Prussia was found alive, nearly 2 days after the latter was abducted from her home, also located in Bath St. Thomas. Davian Bryan, the main suspect in the kidnapping of Felisa, was also named as a suspect in the disappearance of WINSHAE. He is still on the run. Now, as the country celebrates Heroes Day today, Prime Minister Andrew Wholeness and Opposition Leader Mark Golding saluted frontline workers and civil servants as heroes as the country continues to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Here is Colleen May with more on this story.
Prime Minister Andrew Wholeness and Opposition Leader Mark Golding in their Heroes Day messages saluted frontline workers and civil servants as heroes that are continuing to fight the COVID-19 pandemic while risking their lives. Prime Minister Wholeness said that frontline workers have been heroes in this pandemic.
The actions of our heroes changed the course of history and defined the future we now live in today. We pay our respect and honor to them by solemnly recalling their contributions and placing them in the forefront of our consciousness. Today as well, we recall the work and contribution of our frontline workers, particularly our public health workers who have worked tirelessly to keep us safe. Many have become ill in the execution of their duties, and unfortunately, some have died. Our frontline workers have been heroes in this pandemic, and we express our gratitude to them.
Mr. Wholeness outlined how vaccination has helped to increase life expectancy in the country.
The COVID-19 pandemic would not have been the first outbreak of a dangerous disease to cause a public health crisis in Jamaica. In fact, the struggle for our freedom and independence happened alongside our struggles for better public health. In 1851, Jamaica had a serious cholera outbreak which killed more than 40,000 persons, a tenth of the population at the time. The conditions of living in Jamaica at this time would have contributed to the severity of the outbreak. the lack of basic health care for the population would have formed part of the general discontent with living conditions over which heroes like Paul Bogle would have protested. Diseases such as tuberculosis, measles, whooping cough, polio, diphtheria, tetanus, yellow fever, influenza, and pneumonia were all rampant at the time and were leading causes of death and contributed to low life expectancy. A Jamaican living at the turn of the century up to the 1940s, on average, had a life expectancy of 38 years. All these communicable diseases and the deaths they caused were preventable with better health facilities, better personal and public health practices, and most effectively through vaccines. Because of vaccines, preventable diseases are no longer the leading cause of death in Jamaica. Our life expectancy on average is 75 years. We now live longer to enjoy our freedom.
He further added that our heroes have died to afford us the freedom of choice and encourages persons to honor that freedom afforded to us.
Unfortunately, we have grown complacent with our health attitudes and behaviors. We have forgotten our history and how we got here, to the point where we can take our health and the role vaccines have played in securing our personal and public health for granted. Your freedom as a citizen and your right to choose, guaranteed by the Constitution, are not free. Our heroes gave their lives to building a Jamaican state that would provide better conditions for our people, better health care, better education, security, justice, and a better economy. The pandemic has placed all of this at risk the longer we have to institute crude measures, such as lockdowns and no movements to keep you safe from infection spread and prevent our healthcare system from collapsing. And in order to control the pandemic, we have had to divert significant resources from other critical areas such as crime, garbage collection, and roads. My brothers and sisters, my Jamaican family, our heroes did not give their lives to gain our freedom for us to squander it on false information on social media, conspiracy theories, and utter nonsense being espoused by pseudo-prophets and rumor mongers. Our heroes expect us to learn from our history, to be responsible citizens, and take wise decisions about our personal health and protect the collective health of the society. Our history has shown that we have overcome health crises before. We can overcome this COVID-19 pandemic.
Opposition leader in his Heroes Day message reflected on the difficulties the pandemic brought on and encourages persons to reflect on the spirit of resilience of our national heroes.
It is with a sense of honor and humility that I join with you in celebrating National Heroes Day for the first time as leader of the opposition. We have been nearly 2 years now with this COVID-19 pandemic. Over 2,000 Jamaicans have lost their lives to the virus. Our normal way of life has been disrupted, have endured nightly curfews, gathering restrictions, mask wearing, and no movement days. People have lost their jobs. Some have lost their businesses. Times are hard. We all ask ourselves, when will it end? If there was ever a time that we need to draw strength and unity of purpose from the spirit of great courage and self-sacrifice of our 7 national heroes, this is it. The warrior spirit of Nani, the great Maroon leader who ensured the survival of our people in the wilderness of the mountains and never submitted to the domination of colonial rule. The liberating spirit of Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle, and George William Gordon, each of whom paid the ultimate price in the struggle for the freedom of the Jamaican people and never sold out their cause. The ennobling spirit of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who led the way in fighting for racial pride and justice, and whose influence was global and will last for generations until the evil of racism and discrimination are finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. The national spirit of Alexander Bustamante and Norman Washington Manley, who led Jamaica out of colonial rule and into political independence as one of the sovereign nations of the world, and gave us a tradition of democratic governance that has assured the rights and freedoms that we cherish and must never take for granted or be afraid to defend.
Mr. Golding also pointed to our healthcare workers who have found the spirit to persevere in spite of the difficulties of this pandemic.
The rich legacy of our national heroes inspires us to be resilient, strong and determined, especially in this most difficult time. It has been said that a hero is an ordinary individual who finds strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. The spirit of our national heroes finds daily expression in our everyday heroes. It is in our nurses and doctors and other healthcare workers who have all been called upon to act heroically to keep us safe amidst the ravages of this pandemic. It is in our police officers and soldiers who face grave dangers every day to protect us from harm and sometimes do not get the praise and support that they deserve. It is in our teachers who have struggled to adapt and innovate so that our children can receive at least some education in the most difficult and challenging circumstances for schooling. It is indeed in the great generosity of the Jamaican people who help one another in their communities by lending a hand or a listening ear to make life a little bit easier. This pandemic has further deepened the pre-existing inequalities in our society. It has laid bare the devastating impact of the digital divide, the vast disparities in outcomes across our educational system, the differential treatment of breaches of orders, and so much more. As the leaders of today, we owe it to our people and to the liberating spirit of our national heroes to tackle these challenges head-on and build a more fair and just society. Our goal must be one Jamaica for all Jamaicans.
Reporting for Mellow TV News, I'm Kelleen May.
Thank you, Kelleen, for that report. In the meantime, the Hanover Municipal Corporation, in collaboration with the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, JCDC, honored 20 of their frontline workers in public health services as part of their Heroes Weekend celebration. On Friday, Chief Medical Officer for the parish, Dr. Kashal Singh, received his award. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Andrea Dehaney Grant, presented the award during Friday's Parish Council meeting.
As part of our Heroes Day Awards for 2021, we awarded our healthcare workers, considering the work that they have been doing since the pandemic. And at this moment, we have Dr. Singh. We were always told that uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And Dr. Singh being the Chief Medical Officer of Health in the parish, I am sure that a lot of load would have been on his head. And so Dr. Singh, on behalf of the JCDC and the Hanover Municipal Corporation, we want to express our sincere gratitude to you for the work that you have been doing. We realized that you got some vacation leave the other day, and we were so happy because we realized that you were under a lot of pressure since this pandemic. And I see that you're well rested and you're back to work. And we pray that God will continue to bless you and to keep you, because in this time of pandemic, it's never easy. You are on the front line, you are out there fighting for us. And as I said this morning, we are going to help you to fight this fight. So all of us are going to be ambassadors, and we are going to stand up and help to fight this pandemic, because we know that the health department, you at the head and the team are not able to do it all by yourselves. And so I know that all the councils have been vaccinated, so we are going to go out there and we are going to be ambassadors to ensure that we get the people vaccinated, keep their distance, and do what is necessary. So on behalf of the JCDC and the Hanover Municipal Corporation, we present this Heroes Day Award to you, Dr. Singh, in recognition of exceptional dedication and service to this parish, Hanover, during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Dr. Singh.
Dr. Singh, in his remarks, dedicated his award to his entire team, who he said works very hard to serve the people of the parish.
On behalf of my team, who helped me to lead the healthcare service in the parish, they are basically fighting a race against the time. They are putting everything, and this is dedicated to them. Thank you, JCDC. Thank you, Municipal Corporation. Thank you very much. You are always supportive.
His Worship, the Mayor Sheridan Samuels, in addressing the council, saluted the frontline workers as the COVID-19 heroes of Hanover.
Salute the COVID-19 heroes of Hanover, healthcare personnel, infirmary staff, poor relief staff, who has worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic. You know, we saw the work that these workers were doing. You know that during this pandemic, it is very, considered dangerous, and they have gone all the way to ensure that they do everything humanly possible, actually sacrificing their lives to do the work to prevent the parish of Hanover from becoming really a disaster area.
Still tonight, Jamaica yesterday recorded 197 new COVID-19 cases, increasing the overall infection total now to 87,586. The Ministry of Health and Wellness reported that the new cases comprise 102 females and 95 males, ranging in age from 1 to 90 years. Now in tonight's COVID-19 parish breakdown, Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine recorded 49 cases each. St. James and St. Thomas recorded 16 cases each. Portland, St. Anne and St. Elizabeth recorded 11 cases each. Clarendon recorded 8 cases, Trelawny 7 cases, Manchester recorded 6 cases, St. Mary recorded 5 cases, while Hanover and Westermerland recorded 4 cases each. In the meantime, 7 additional deaths were recorded, increasing the death toll from the virus now to 2,117. 6 of the deceased are from Trelawney, namely a 90-year-old female and an 84-year-old male, whose deaths were previously listed as under investigation, a 57-year-old male and 3 other females aged 72, 79, and 58 years. The other confirmed death was of a 51-year-old female from St. Catherine. The deaths occurred between September 2 and October 15, 2021. In the meantime, 175 additional persons recovered in the last 24 hours, increasing the total of recovered persons now to 55,637. In other news tonight, Prime Minister Andrew Wholeness, in an address to citizens during a vaccination mobilization visit to the community hospital and the Redemption Faith Church vaccination centers in Calderwood, St. Anne, emphasized that the health status of the island will determine its economic status.
The one way out of this is vaccination. Now, we are in the process of developing a national consensus on vaccine options. I'm deliberately avoiding the use of the word mandates because ultimately in the minds of some Jamaicans it conjures up an infringement of their rights. And there are those who interpret the word mandate to be compulsory and force, and that somehow the government is going to hold you down and inject you. This is not the intention of the government, and I want, if there are Jamaicans who have that view, I would want to put those fears to rest. What we will have to do as a society, however, if we are going to return to normal, meaning that our economy can operate at full capacity, people are free to move about and gather as they will, go back to school, go back to church, and the government itself can refocus on dealing with crime, keeping our economy going, and addressing all the other issues. The truth is that we need to have a high level of immunization, a high level of vaccination. The population, you and I, need to have our health status such that if we are exposed to the coronavirus, the probability of a fatal event, meaning that we die, or the probability of having to be hospitalized with a serious form of the illness, that probability is significantly reduced.
Mr. Wholeness also noted that the Alexandria area has a large concentration of persons who go on the farm work program and highlighted that their taking of the vaccine is indicative of the fact that they have made the connection between their health status and their livelihood.
In this constituency, in one site that we are visiting, many Jamaicans are there taking their vaccines. The question is, why are they taking the vaccines? I was actually surprised. We saw almost 150 persons there waiting to take their vaccines. They're taking their vaccine because many of them have to travel. Many of them are on the farm work program, on the hotel work program, and they recognize that their health status is critical now to their economic status. There are many Jamaicans who don't make that connection, that my ability to open back my bar fully and have all my customers there is connected with how quickly we all get vaccinated so we can return to normal. They don't make the connection that the quicker we take the vaccine, the quicker our children will go back to school. We have to educate the people and encourage them, because as we celebrate the Heroes Week and Heroes Day coming up, the essence of the struggle of Jamaica is about freedom. And as Prime Minister of this country, I would never do anything that will restrict or take away the freedoms of the people. But freedom comes with responsibility. You can imagine that someone who has freedom and no responsibility, the destruction that they can cause. So people who have freedom automatically always takes on the responsibility of the actions that they take. And so what we are trying to do is to help Jamaicans to be responsible with their freedom in making the right decisions.
Continuing with the news tonight, while addressing the private session of the People's National Party's PNP's 83rd Annual Conference, President of the party, Mark Golding, yesterday renewed the call for an independent probe into the oxygen shortage at hospitals across Jamaica in August that reportedly led to several COVID-19 related deaths.
There have been some serious mishaps along the way. Perhaps the worst was the botched arrangements to ensure adequate supplies of oxygen for this deadly respiratory disease. This caused a fateful weekend in late August when many hospitals did not have the oxygen needed by patients and several persons died. Our calls for an independent inquiry into the circumstances of that debacle have so far gone unheeded, and I repeat the call again today. We want to know, the people of Jamaica deserve to know why that happened.
Mr. Golding said that he has been excluded from the national vaccination program, contrary to the claim by Prime Minister Wholeness. Golding indicated that he remains open to participating in the national interest and reiterated that his party strongly supports vaccination and encourages any citizen who is able to be inoculated. The opposition leader says the JLP-led government has been riddled with alleged corruption since their governance started.
This Jamaica Labour Party government has made a name for itself as the most corrupt administration in the history of Jamaica. Their first term was riddled with scandals in an orgy of looting of public resources. There was a debushing scandal in the run-up to the last local government elections. The used car scandal, and now the cars can't be found. Petrojam scandal, Nessal, the Universal Service Fund, the Caribbean Maritime University, and several others. And in the past year, we have learned of the Airports Authority of Jamaica breaching public financial regulations and its own investment policy to make a massive investment of public funds in a startup business in which a politically connected director had herself invested and then became a director. Then we learned of Nutrition Products Limited, overseeing contracts worth over $140 million with entities owned by its directors or their related parties, even as it cut back on its core business of providing meals to poor people picnic in primary schools. Imagine thieving the picnic them Nutribullet. Shame. The society has grown numb from these recurring scandals. The agencies that were set up to enforce the anti-corruption laws are yet to show that they have what it takes to hold the looters accountable for their thievery.
Mr. Golding outlined the PNP's aspiration for the country.
Our party's aspiration is to build a society which manifests the principles of equality and an unwavering pursuit of social justice. Our mission is to eliminate the structures of inequality and unfairness that we have inherited from our colonial past. And this is what makes the PNP strong. We must also draw strength from our commitment to utmost integrity in our management of the affairs and resources of the people. The deep cynicism about the political process in Jamaica needs to be countered. It is a real danger to our democratic way of life, providing fodder for those who would further an autocratic agenda. The PNP will be committed to making the anti-corruption laws and institutions of Jamaica, many of which were conceptualized and developed during our last administration, work effectively for good governance.